Welcome, everyone, to the Sealed Only series. In this series, we will be taking 3 structure decks and building the strongest deck we can with them. Along the way, we will pick up different packs and cards that will allow us to modify the deck and make it stronger. Some sets, however, are sealed behind certain requirements, sets like Dual Devastator and other structure decks, while packs are limited to my $30 a week budget. This series will document not only my 0 to hero status, but also be proof as to why you should stick to buying singles. Now then, let's get into it.
Alright, let's start this series. So, as you guys know, and you're probably familiar with now because everybody's done it, this is a sealed only series, which means we can only open sealed products. This is meant to show why you should buy only singles from sites like TCG Player, Troll and Toad, and there's a lot of others. I'm going to be opening, first off, the 3 structure decks. I have $30 a week, give or take. So, that said, I'm using the new structure deck, Freezing Chains. I love synchro summoning. It's my favorite thing. And, well, there's not too much more to talk about. Let's just crack into this so you guys can see what's in it. That's a really pretty field mat. Anyways, let's just open this up so you guys can see the new cards and everything. Revealer of the Ice Barrier. Speaker for the Ice Barrier. Zujin of the Ice Barrier, Winds over the Ice Barrier, the new Synchro monster, Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. This is like my favorite card. Dwarlin, Brionic, that nice super, Gungnir, and Trishula, our baby. We have General Wayne of the Ice Barrier, another one of the new cards, Hexa, Spirit of the Ice Barrier. Such a good card. I've been doing some testing with this card. Blizzard, Defender of the Ice Barrier. Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier. I actually just recently managed to get my hands on a secret rare version of him. Prior of the Ice Barrier. Defender of the Ice Barrier. I'm like drifting out of frame here. Warlock of the Ice Barrier. I'm going to bring this back up. Spellbreaker of the Ice Barrier. Strategist of the Ice Barrier. Dance Princess of the Ice Barrier, Daisojo of the Ice Barrier, General Ryo of the Ice Barrier, Medium of the Ice Barrier, General, I'm not even going to pronounce that, General Garnet, nope, names. We have Gen X Controller, Gen X Undyne, Aqua Spirit, such a good card in water decks, Dupe Frog, Ronin Totem. Alright. Fishborg Launcher. The Element Lord. Good side deck card. Maybe. Silent Angler. Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. MVP of the deck. Triangle of the Ice Barrier. Magic Triangle, my bad. Medallion of the Ice Barrier. Rhoda. Not once per turn. Objectively better. Mirror of the Ice Barrier. Mirror matches. Salvage. Surface. Where Arf Thou? Opponent of the Red Lotus. Fiendish Chain. Icepawn, Mind Drain, Heavy Storm Duster, Crackdown, and Torrent of Trishula, an objectively better Trishula effect. Well, I'm going to go build a deck with this mess of cards, and I'll be back. Alright, I've finished the deck. And I'm just going to page through it real quick with you guys. So we have one General Grunod of the Ice Barrier. He's just good for another normal summon and boss monster if I can't synchro summon. Medium of the Ice Barrier. She's a good lockdown card if I'm going against a strong opponent that's good at swarming the field. 2 copies of General Wayne of the Ice Barrier. He's good, but only if I get stuck with a bad field, or I'm going second. 3 copies of Revealer of the Ice Barrier. Objectively the best card in the deck. Basically, you can discard one to special summon a tuner from your deck, and if you have to banish, or if you have to discard a card, you can banish her as cost instead, for one of the cards. So, objectively the best card in the deck. Easily the second or third best card in the deck, Speaker for the Ice Barrier. Basically, with this card, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can banish it and special summon a token, and that's really all that matters. So, good card. Plus, I'm pretty sure it's a free special summon, but doesn't matter. Anyways, one copy of Spellbreaker of the Ice Barrier, just because it's another Ice Barrier name and has a decent effect where if you discard a card, neither player can use spell cards until your next end phase. So, yeah. One copy of Dance Princess of the Ice Barrier, literally just for another name. No other reason for me using this card. 3 copies of Defender of the Ice Barrier. This card is insane. I don't know if you guys can read its effect. If not, I'll read it to you real quick. Pretty much, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, and this card is on the field, monsters with attack higher than or equal to this card's defense cannot declare an attack. Insane. It only has 1600 defense, so it locks out so many decks. 2 copies of Zujin of the Ice Barrier. He has a name, plus he has a little bit of recursion by lowering the levels. That's all we need to know. 2 copies of Cryomancer. It's a level 2 tuner that also limits the opponent heavily. So, good card. 1 copy of Prior of the Ice Barrier, because you only need 1 copy. It's a bad card, dead draw. Another name. 3 copies of Hexa, the Spirit of the Ice Barrier. This card is insane. Basically, once per turn you can dump a tuner from the deck. This card's level becomes equal to that tuner's. That's all you need to know about it. It's kind of insane. 3 copies of Winds over the Ice Barrier. Pretty much, you can tribute Ice Barriers you control with this card, and special summon level 4 or lower Ice Barriers equal to the number you tributed. Insane. So, yeah. There's other effects, but I didn't bother reading them yet. We have 2 copies of Surface to go with our 2 copies of Salvage, because this is entirely water-based, and Surface and Salvage are like our 2 best cards in the deck right now. 2 copies of Magic Triangle, the Ice Barrier. The OGs will remember this card, but pretty much you can reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters in your hand, target card the opponent controls, destroy that card. If you do, you get to special summon the Ice Barrier in hand. However, you have to have 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names. So, kind of bad, but kind of good, but bad. 3 copies of objectively the 2nd or 3rd or 4th best card in the deck. Non-once per turn Rhoda for Ice Barriers. Medallion of the Ice Barrier. Just says add 1 Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. Any Ice Barrier monster. So instead of running a 41 card deck, I'm essentially running a 38 card deck with Search Power. We have 3 copies of Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. I completely missed the camera with that one. Pretty much what Freezing Chains does, it says Monster Reborn. It is a Monster Reborn for level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters, and while you control 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters, monsters from your opponent's extra deck do not affect your field. So, bye-bye, Zeus. And then 3 copies of Terror of Trishula, because this card is just insane. Basically, while you control Ice Barrier monsters from your extra deck, you can activate this and it gains effects depending on the number. Basically, it has Trishula's effects while you have all 3, and it just loses Trishula effects. If you just have 1, if I'm not, yeah, you get to banish a card from your opponent controls if it only has 1 Ice Barrier on the field. If you have 2, you get to banish 1 from their graveyard and 1 from their field. 3, you get to rip 1 from their hand, banish 1 on their field, and banish 1 in their grave. And, yeah, it's insane. So, moving on to the extremely limited extra deck, we have 3 of the Boss Mom of the deck. Trishula, Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. This card's insane. So, basically, if it dies, you special summon a Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier from your extra deck or graveyard. Its attack becomes 3,300, and the effects of other monsters are negated. That's insane. Plus, when this card is special summoned, you can literally just banish 3 cards on your opponent's field. It's insane. And it's only a level 11. Konami's going to ban this card. I guarantee it. But we're going to abuse it. Because if you can abuse it, you can use it. One Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier, because, I mean, it's just the worst version of the other one. Plus, it's limited and it's a special summon target, so really good card. Triple Gungnir, because we need extra deck stuff, and Gungnir is actually pretty good. He's pretty easy to go into. It's level 7. And he can pitch cards to pop cards. So he's actually kind of good. You can pitch up to 2 cards from your hand, pop the same number of cards on the field. Pretty good card. Pretty good card. Not the greatest, though. One Duloran. He's bad. He's bad now. Pretty much you can bounce a card on your field, back to your hand. He gains 500 for... You can bounce any number. But he gains 500 for each card bounced. And it's a soft once per turn. But he's limited, so it doesn't matter. And to round things out, we have 3 Bryonic, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Probably the second best card in the extra deck. Just because it's... In fact, you can pitch up to 3 cards from your hand, bounce the same number of cards that your opponent controls, back to the hand. Great card. Also really easy to go into with this deck. And then finally, rounding things out, we're going to go into the side deck. We got 3 copies of Crackdown to get rid of problem cards, 3 copies of Appointer of the Red Lotus to get rid of problem cards, 2 copies of Mind Drain to get rid of problem cards, 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster to get rid of problem cards, 3 copies of Fiendish Chain in case the other problems weren't solved. I'm assuming you guys all know what these do, any meta player does, but Fiendish Chain is just basically no. Heavy Storm Duster is Twin Twisters without paying cost. But it's a trap card, it's slow, it's kind of bad. I'd rather run Twin Twisters. Mind Drain kills hand traps. It's a good first turn set, but besides that, it doesn't really do anything. It just kills effects in hand, and you have to pay 1,000 life points to activate it anyways. Opponent of the Red Lotus, pay 2,000 life points, look your opponent's hand after revealing yours, and rip a card. Not bad. This deck, we're going to go through our entire hand anyways, so might as well run it. And then Crackdown literally just to get rid of other cards and use them as synchro material. So that's not the whole thing, but that's most of it. We also run 1 copy of the Elemental Lord, because it's actually a decent card. But it's too inconsistent to bring out, and I really don't want to bother reading all that text all the time. So, until I decide otherwise, it's staying in the extra deck, or side deck. And we run 1 General Raiho with the Ice Barrier. He has a decent effect, he's just a tribute, and we don't really run very many of those. We run 1 monster that we have to tribute summon. The other ones can special summon themselves. So, maybe stays, maybe goes. I'll figure it out. So, we're going to head to locals now.
Alright, so going into my first match, I really had no idea what I was going against, but as most people do, we decided to do a high roll. I grabbed my 2 d20s and lost the dice roll rather beautifully. He made me go first, I believe. I was concerned at this point because most decks don't make the opponent go first. So I figured it was one of a few decks. It could either be Cyber Dragons, which it turns out to be, or it could be some sort of really bizarre go second build on like virtual worlds to attempt to OTK me. Or it could be Dino. I know some Dino decks do want to go second. So while he reads my revealer, I'm thinking about what is my next play going to be. He finishes reading it, and I attempt to use Revealer's effect, expecting to get Veilered. I use it, pitch Prior, and that allows me to special summon from my deck, if I remember right, Defender of the Ice Barrier. He reads Prior, which is a bad card, and I special summon Defender. Defender basically just says an opponent's monster that has a higher attack than its defense, so any monster with 1600 or higher attack cannot declare an attack on my Ice Barrier monsters. So I do all of that, and then I decide to pass pretty much. Oh wait, no, I activate Winds over the Ice Barrier. My bad. This was a couple days ago. I'm recording this a little late. But I decide to special summon from my extra deck Spellbreaker of the Ice Barriers, which is pitch an Ice Barrier card to prevent the opponent from activating spells until my next end phase, and Defender. So it's just a different kind of lock, not quite as good, but it's different. I can still Synchro Summon into level 7 if I desire, and they can't attack, plus I can stop spells. I activate Spellbreaker's effect some point here, and it's only while Spellbreaker's face up on the field. That's important. But I activate Spellbreaker's effect and pitch from my hand, and I ended up pitching Medium. So Medium is not that great, let's be honest. I'm gonna end up cutting her probably, but I pitch Medium. So my friend and opponent summons Cyber Dragon, and then summons Pankratops. At this point, I'm very sad. I am very sad. I explained to him pretty much what the lock is that I was going for. He summons Hares, and I begin to die a little on the inside. So he decides, hey, how about we just, pop that Spellbreaker there. And I checked to make sure I don't have any, way of protecting that he asked. So rather than pop the Spellbreaker like I thought he was going to, which he told me later he was planning on, he instead pops the Defender and beats over the spell. So match number 2, after taking the loss against my Cyber Dragon friend, I win the die roll and decide that I want to go first. I have no idea what my opponent's playing. They're actually new to my locals, so I've never even met them before. But I start with the normal play, Medallion, see if I can bait their Ash Blossom if they have one. And after taking a quick look at my hand, I decide that I want to add Speaker of the Ice Barrier. Or is it Revealer? I don't remember. I had one of them at hand and I needed the other one. So I reveal it, and sadly I don't have it on screen. But it was Speaker. I added Speaker. Just saw it in my hand. I normal summon Revealer and explain what Revealer does. He tries to activate the effect Veiler on it, but he can't because I haven't activated any effects. I just normal summoned, so he doesn't have a chance to do it yet. He explains that it just says during the main phase, and I explain the actual rulings to him, at least in the TCG. I don't know about the OCG. So I activate Revealer's effect here, pitching Speaker, and it does pitch for cost, which is what my double check was, and he Veilers it. So I decide pretty much here, well, I don't know if I have anything else I can really do, because the token isn't a tuner and can't help me. So I just set one pass. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm going against here. And my opponent just decides, well, I'm going to try and play. Turns out that they were running Cybers, specifically Code Talkers, and they had opened bad. So from there, I brought up life points and kind of just destroyed him game 1. It wasn't really much of a game. I drew into the right amount of plays. And so since I had won the first game, going into game 2, I decided, you know what, this is an interesting deck. I'll record it. So he, of course, had lost the game and got choice. He decides to make me go first, which is a little confusing to me. But I start with, the basic Medallion in case he has the Ash Blossom. I was trying to bait it, and I add to my hand Revealer, normal play. So from here, my only play that I could really think of that would have been smart was summon the Revealer I just added and activate its effect, and it's immediately met with another Veiler. This guy had all of the outs, I swear. But I checked to make sure that it's still cost, and pitched for cost. I pitched my Defender from hand, and then I activate the Monster Reborn for the deck, Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, which, fun fact, the additional effect is, as long as I control 3 Ice Barrier monsters special summon from the opponent's extra deck cannot target my monsters with their effects. So, can kill certain plays. I was expecting him to have access code, so I was kind of choked on getting 3 out, but I expected him to have access code and pop that card since it would be a problem card. I let him read Defender because it was his first time seeing it. It was most people's first time there actually seeing Ice Barrier cards. So I figured, you know what? I'll let him read it. I'll let each person take their time. He summons Balancer Lord, activates effect, pays the cost of 1,000, and I hit it with Fiendish Chain to negate its effect. He goes, oh, well, that's bad. And sits there and ponders for a second. Now, I can't see his hand, but you guys can definitely see it. I just had no idea what he had in hand, because every time I've gone against any deck like this, they've always had like Microcoder in hand, and it hasn't mattered. But I was up 1,000 life points. I was feeling happy. We had like 25 minutes left in round. And he hits me with a set 2 pass. I'm not concerned because last time he hadn't set anything big, just a couple slow down cards. I believe he had also hit me with a Dark Bribe. So I normal summon Hexa. And Hexa is the one where you can dump from deck to change its level to the level of the card dumped, but it has to be a level 3 or lower water monster, I think. However, it doesn't matter. He hits it with Solemn Warning, which is another 2,000 off of his life points, dropping him all the way down to 5,000. I ponder for a second, and I see that, he has another set card, which is the main reason for my pondering. I consider going into Gungnir. Ultimately, I decide to go into Gungnir. Don't know if it was the smartest choice, but rather than crash with his monster, I decide to activate Gungnir and make a wicked misplay. This misplay was I cannot activate Revealer's effect the same turn and banish, but it wasn't the same turn, so I lied. I didn't misplay. However, I do use Gungnir and destroy his face down and his monster, and then hit him for 25, which leaves him with 2,500 life points left. At this point, I'm thinking I got it in the bag. He summons Lady Debug, and this is where I was like, oh boy. He added the backup secretary that he just special summoned and then special summoned her. I'm like, okay, this isn't bad, So from here he ponders for a second, and then he goes into Code Talker Inverted. I remember that card because I'd never seen it before, and didn't realize it was a Code Talker. So right here he pauses while I explain to him what Freezing Chains does, and ultimately, like I said, he decides to go into Code Talker. Code Talker, if he had pulled it off right, has a really, really cool effect. However, he pulled it off wrong and didn't get the effect. I don't remember what we're doing here, honestly. I guess we were checking effects. I couldn't tell you to save my life. Like I said, this was a couple days ago, and it was first match. I hadn't had my morning coffee. You know what? It's an excuse, but it's a good excuse. So from here, he just decides, all right, it's time to link off. So he links his monsters into Code Talker Inverted, like I said, and I've never seen it, never even heard of this card. So I just looked at it in wonder, and then he, very anime style, reveals the card in his hand, which I'd never seen before. It was Link Belt Dragon. At least I think that's the name of it. It's not on the field for long, but I'd never seen it before. So I paused to read it, and then realized I know the effect of it, because while I hadn't seen it before, I'd heard others talk about it. So he then links again into Transcode Talker, which I guess is his boss monster. It's not a bad card, not a good card, but not a bad card. And he uses its effect to bring back Code Talker Inverted. He then Mystic Boxes me. I double-checked what Mystic Box said, and it basically destroys my monster and then gives his Code Talker Inverted to me. So I have a weaker monster, and he beats over it. I actually do compliment him on his play. That was a pretty well-thought-through play. But it wasn't enough. So I draw, look at my hand, and realize, oh, wait. This is good. So I activate. After asking him what it does, he says it does it every turn. Oh, that's right, I didn't activate anything. Because I had drawn half of a combo. My bad. My bad. So he summons and just full swings into me. Now, this wasn't game, especially since he had, Dotscaper. Don't know why he didn't link again, but he had a Dotscaper. And it's a pretty good card. Have you read that card? And miscellaneous is the problem. Alright. But, so, he's looking through his extra deck here, and I'm like, alright, he doesn't have game, and I don't think he has a way to game. And then he links. I'm like, no. We don't do this. And he goes into Topologic. I'm like, no. We don't do this. And he special summons Dotscaper, because he's like, this would strip my whole combo if I summoned it to his own Link monster if I wanted to. And I'm like, ooh, big brain moment. But then I realized everything I did was in the main monster zone, and I couldn't play if my board was wiped. So he hits me with Topologic and Inverted, and I take a pretty hefty chunk of life points. If I'm not mistaken, I took 4,300. But I draw. I'm like, alright, I drew the rest of my combo. And from here, I ponder for a second, and then normal summon Revealer. Revealer simply says discard a card. It doesn't have to be a monster. Just a card. I ponder, once again, thinking through my plays. And if I remember right, I special summoned Hexa. Except I didn't summon it to a zone that a Link monster pointed to. And from there, I activate Hexa's effect, which I explained to him lets me tear one to change its level. I rip out of my deck Defender, which changes Hexa's level to 3. That gives me a level 3 and a level 4 on the board, which lets me go into a level 7. From the level 7, I completely forgot about Revealer's limitation, saying that I couldn't use both effects, and, well, accepted game state. That's all I'm going to say. He accepted it, didn't bother actually reading the card, and I had just forgotten. So, yeah, it was a misplay. Yeah, I feel bad about it. And, yeah, I ended up taking game because of it. But, at the same time, it's, once again, accepted game state, and there's no real way around it. I don't have game at this point, however, because I only had one monster. So I pass the turn to him. He draws, looks around a little bit in his cards, and I'm thinking, oh boy, he's going to have some sort of Wicked out. So I start paging through my extra deck, like, what can I do off of one card? What can I possibly summon off of one card? Like, that's all I'm going to get. All I'm going to get is the top deck. What card do I need to top deck? And I'm thinking. And, he's taken a pretty decently long time, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, I had told people, take as long as you need. I have life left on my camera. Just, you do you. He tributes off the Dotscaper for the Link Karibo, and then sets one. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I activate Winds over the Ice Barrier. Basically, I can banish it at a monster that's banished or in my graveyard back to my hand. So it's not a bad card. It's actually pretty good because you do a lot of banishing off of effects. And I had Hexa back to my hand. I sit here and think, and then realize I added the wrong card. But you know what? Accepted game state. Once again, I normal send Hexa. Don't know why I said normal send. I pitch Hexa for Gungnir's effect, pop his face down, and attack his Link Karibo. He triggers its effect, which was expected, so I go to second main, set one, and pass. He draws for turn. As you can see in his hand, he has a Gamma Seal. I, however, did not know what he had drawn into. So I am shaking at this point, thinking, oh no, he has game. He's just gonna beat me. He tributes my monster for Gamma Seal in defense. I'm like, excuse me? From here, I draw a card, realize, after thinking more than I should have, I can just change Gamma Seal to attack in game. I then activate Salvage, add 2 cards back to my hand, and halfway through adding them back to my hand, I realize I can just attack with Gamma Seal. And so I changed Gamma Seal to attack after reading its effect and pondering for a second. Also counted its levels, it was level 8. But I changed it to attack for game, and we congratulate each other on the game. Going into match 3, I'm really happy. I'm 1-1, and I sit across from my friend, and we use my dice, obviously, but we do high roll. He, of course, wins. At least I think he did. A couple days ago, irrelevant. It's not a duel that we're going to watch because turns out he's running Mystic Mine. So, that said, I'm just going to speak over what happens here. He activates Mystic Mine, Field Barrier, Prohibition, calls Spellbreaker. And I'm like, oh, great. My out. And pass his turn. I draw. Realize I can't play. Cry a little bit. I attempt to destroy it with Magic Triangle. However, Magic Triangle doesn't really work because he has a judgment. So man, screw Mystic Mine. They should ban that card. Come on. So I ended up losing that match, and we're not going to watch any more of it. Round 4, now going 1-2 because of the Mystic Mine player. I was furious, but I got paired against somebody I had played against last week, and I knew they were running some sort of Pendulum deck. The Pendulum Myth deck. However, going against them, they took an insanely long turn, and it turns out they were running Endymion Pen Magician. So with no real anything I can do, we're not going to sit through the entire first turn. I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm just going to give you a basic rundown. He summoned a lot of monsters. I really didn't have an out. The deck doesn't come with hand traps anyways. I couldn't do any damage. He just had the right negates. And ultimately, he took the game. He 2-0'd me, which is to be expected. I mean, it's my first week. All I have is 3 structure decks. I mean, you guys know my deck list. I have nothing. So I let him play out his entire first turn, attempt to do things on my turn, and I just can't. So he takes it. And honestly, I don't mind. He's running a pretty solid deck. I looked through it. I used to run Pendulums. He's running a good deck. I can't foul him for that. So he 2-0'd me, and we move on to the final round. Alright, so sadly, I forgot to record my last match. I was 1-3. I was at the last table in the room, table 500. But I sit down across from this person. They were the sweetest person. I just such a nice person. And I'm like, all right, you have to be doing bad to be here too. He's like, yeah, I am. So I sit down and we open up. Turns out he's running Tri-Brigade Gladiator Beast, a deck that I had never seen before. I had seen all of the Tri-Brigade Link spam. I thought I had seen it all. But he ends up taking game 1 pretty easily. He gets Editor on the field, gets whatever the rank or the Link 4 Tri-Brigade monster is, and just locks me out pretty much of playing. He has Augustus on the field. Like, I have nothing I can do. So I side in all of my cards, go against him. Game 2, he messed up, ended up cutting so much of his life points out that I just summoned a monster, attacked into a Nerval that he had accidentally left in attack position, and got game. He had Judgmented me twice that game, so he was already at 2,000 life points, plus he had burned himself, I believe, 1,000 for instant fusion. So he had hurt himself there. And, I mean, yeah, he got a little cocky, and yeah, it came to bite him. But it was a good duel. It lasted a lot longer than you normally have a duel. I'm really sad that I lost the footage to this. But finally, going into game 3, it's all the marbles or nothing. And I'm thinking, you know what? I did good with my sealed only journey so far, but I want to break a couple records. So I sit down. He makes me go first. I do my plays. He does his plays. Except I had a Crackdown and 2 Fiendish Chain set, so that killed whatever plays he had. After some back and forth, and neither one of us really getting the upper hand, I managed to summon Trishula Zero, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, who had pretty much been, a constant throughout the day, in some of the duels that you guys didn't see, and when I was messing around with friends. So I summoned Trish, and banish his 3 monsters that have attack points, and attack his Nerval that he had accidentally left in attack position because he thought he was able to do something with it. So, time of the round was called after he had dealt 1,500 life points of damage to me, and I had declared battle phase on my turn. 27 over 0 dropped his life points lower than mine, allowing me to win in time. Did it feel dirty? Yes. Were there hard feelings? No. It was probably the best duel I had had all day. It was definitely the most fun I had had, and if I could duel him again, I definitely would. But that was my sealed only journey for this week. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we broke a couple records as the first ever sealed only to win 2 matches on their first episode, and I hope that we can continue to win more from here on out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned in to all of our content. There will be one next week. It'll probably be going up about the same time, and I'll see you all there. See ya.